this is one of the concepts that Virginia Satir expressed or described as a route to higher self-esteem. And for those of you who've studied Virginia Satir or have had some exposure, will know that high on her list of desirable goals is to raise the self-esteem of her clients, the individuals and families that she worked with. For those of you who may not know, Virginia was a social worker in the US, and she started working with people with mental health issues and doing counseling, and gradually became what we refer to as the mother of family therapy. At the time in the 60s, when she started doing her work, there were very few people doing family therapy. They mostly worked with individuals, sometimes with couples, but rarely worked with the families altogether. And people would refer children to a therapist to, often they were seen as the black sheep of the family, and they were sent off to the therapist to get fixed. And then they would come back into the family system, and surprise, surprise, the behaviors would return. So Virginia was always looking at, how do we raise individual self-esteem? How do we raise the self-esteem of families? And her concept of freedom was also, it's at the root of all of her work. And she really believed that freedom was important. Freedom to be whoever we were. Freedom to be a full human being, accepting all our parts, accepting ourselves with our strengths and weaknesses, and being free to be in relationship with other people as authentic human beings. And that freedom is at the base of all of her beliefs and philosophies and processes that she developed to help individuals and families get there. And there's a picture of Virginia for those of you who may not have seen a picture of her lately or know what she looked like. This was, I think this was taken in the 60s or 70s, and she was a young woman. She died in 1988. And I never met her myself. I learned what I know of the Virginia Satir model from my mentor and teacher, Maria Gamori, also from Winnipeg, who Claire knows and Barb has met. And Bonnie, I don't know about you, but she is, Maria was a very gifted teacher too, and devoted her life to spreading the teachings of Virginia Satir, and trained many of us in Winnipeg and throughout the world, hundreds of us, to keep the word, the teachings of Virginia Satir alive after Maria was gone, and she died just before Christmas at 101 years old. And she was teaching, mentoring her Virginia Satir students up to the day before she passed away. So I think being involved with the Virginia Satir model and teachings is one of the ways to having a long and productive and exciting life. Okay, now here are, whoops, sorry. Now is my screen, a little screen that shows all of you, blocking out this slide, or no?
No, it looks good.
Okay, yeah. Good. Okay. So Virginia Satir's beliefs. And I want you to think about this. She believed the causes of mental imbalance were the limiting identities or rigid belief systems that people formed as a result of feeling forced to live up to rigid expectations, comparisons, external standards, and judgments that existed at the personal, familial, and cultural levels. And I'm going to break that down a little bit. When you talk about limiting identities, and I'll mention some, and you can add some of your own if you'd like. Some of the ways that I thought of and actually Barb helped me come up with this list just before the presentation started, but I worked in divorce mediation I still work in that area, but for over 30 years. And, often when a father or a husband dies or a divorce happens, very young children, male children, get a message that you're the man of the house now. And this is a message that a young boy will get that will can be a limiting identity. And we've heard this from a lot of men who grow up thinking that they were expected to become a man when they were 10 years old or 6 years old, looking after younger siblings, taking care of their mother, having chores that would normally be beyond their years. So that's an example of a limiting identity. Here's another one. You're such a good girl. So if a girl is getting that message all the time and she's done something bad, she's told a lie, or she has done something that was not within the normal expectations of her behavior, she could start to feel like a fraud, or that people don't see her real self. Some people are raised in families where the family identity is that you're all athletes. And if somebody is a more internal person, more intellectual or a musical or artistic or something, they may not feel that they fit that identity, which expresses something about the family. The jokester. Some people, if they're always making jokes, are expected to be always funny, and people don't think that they're hurting inside sometimes. And family identities, the Smiths don't act like that. Or we don't do that in this family. We have a different set of expectations. And the rigid expectations. In some family, everyone's expected to go to university, or nobody is expected to go to university. People may be expected to do a job where they work with their hands or to work outdoors. Some families, there's a big expectation that you have to be successful in whatever field you go into, and other families don't seek success in the same way, maybe measured by external standards. Some families and communities expect everyone to volunteer for the organized sports organizations or nonprofit societies or the Humane Society, whatever it is. In other families, there's no expectations about that. It's that you stick within the family. Another one is finish what you start. This is related to the family rules that many of us grew up with, that can be rigid and can be inhuman. Sometimes it's not possible to finish what you start. But if you have this as a rigid expectation, you're going to beat yourself up every time you don't finish something, or you'll feel guilty, or you'll feel ashamed, or you won't give up when something is too hard, or it's too, you find out you don't like it, a sport or an activity, but you're going to stick it out no matter what. So these are all part of the rigid expectations that can be limiting in Virginia's eyes. Anybody think of any other rigid expectations or limiting beliefs that you want to share?
Yeah, you're not smart enough or not good enough, right, to do something.
Yeah, it was a limiting identity. Yeah. Yeah. Many people grow up with that, that limit on themselves, and they suffer from low self-esteem because of it. A lot of people who come to therapy or participate in personal growth groups don't feel like they're ever good enough. And I think Virginia was wonderful to help us understand how we came to think that way and feel that way, and what we can do about it in the present. Because Virginia was all about change. She was all about, you know, the second part of this statement, you know, she was known for demonstrations of her work, which she seemingly performed miracles. She helped family members quickly access their strength and their authentic voices. And I think that that term authentic voices is really what the 5 freedoms is all about. Anyone else care to add anything?
I think anytime that we could find authenticity anywhere in our life, to have an example of what that is, right? Or recognize it even. I don't know.
Yeah.
Make a big difference from the start.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hi, is that Tammy speaking? Yeah, hey, sorry, I know you joined us, and welcome. Welcome, nice to see you again.
I keep getting the time zone mixed up. I'm not sure. I was here at 12 and then it said 2:30, and then it seems like it's been going on. Did it start at 2:30?
2 o'clock Central Time.
Hmm.
We started, yeah, but we didn't start the presentation until about 2:15 or so.
I'll make that adjustment for next time. Thank you.
All right. Great. So we talked a little bit about limiting identities, rigid expectations. I'll just talk a little bit more about Virginia's, what she believed that a healthy person did. She believed that a healthy person communicates congruently with their words, emotions, and bodies. So the whole concept of congruence, which is at the base of Virginia's teachings, is also the road to high self-esteem. And it's about authenticity, which we all strive, many of us strive for. And when we express our authentic self to ourselves and to others, we feel healthier. Our self-esteem is more intact. We like ourselves better than when we communicate incongruently. And we may do another session another day about Virginia's communication model, because it really provides more information about congruence versus incongruence. But for now, a healthy person, their words, their feelings, their body language, the look on their face, everything matches up. You know, and I think all of us have had the experience of listening to somebody who says something, but everything about them looks different than what they're saying. You know, we might say to somebody, "How are you doing?" And they say, "I'm fine." But really their body is all tense. They look scared, or they look sad, but their response is, "I'm fine." Now that's not congruent. It's not authentic. They're not really fine. But we often say that just as a, it's without thinking about it. When I go to the grocery store and somebody asks me, how are you doing today? I could say, it's the worst day of my life. I just found out I've got cancer. My dog died. I ran into the back of a pickup truck and smashed my car up. It's the worst day of my life. Now, does anyone think the grocery store clerk actually wants to hear that? Probably not. She's probably busy, or he, doing their job, and just being polite, making conversation. And I remember a time when I was having a terrible day. All of those bad things hadn't happened to me, but I was having a terrible day. And when she asked me, how are you feeling? I said, do you really want to know? And she said, no. I said, okay, good, because I don't want to talk about it. But I also didn't want to just say that I felt fine, because I felt so bad at the moment. So I was trying to communicate congruently and appropriately. And the more we do that, the healthier we are, the more open and honest we are in our relationships, the more, we don't have to remember what we said to one person or the other person. We just are who we are. The outside matches the inside. If we're sad, we look sad. If we're angry, we look angry. We sound angry. And if we're happy, we look happy. So it keeps life very simple and leads to better health, according to Virginia. Okay, here's another way that she defined a healthy person: that we make conscious choices based on, I've got to move this down a bit, acknowledgement, on awareness, acknowledgement, and acceptance of self, other, and the context. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that triad of self, other, and context in a moment. But one of the key goals of Virginia Satir therapy is creating more choices for ourselves, making those choices consciously, taking responsibility for the choices and the consequences that go with them, raising our self-esteem, and there's a fourth thing, the meta goal: congruence, choices, responsibility, and high self-esteem. Those are the four main meta goals of Virginia's therapy with every single client. So it's, when we make a choice, are we going to eat that extra cookie? Well, we're aware that, may not be the best thing for our sugar level, may not be the best thing for our waistline, but it is a pecan puff, which is my favorite Christmas cookie. And I rarely get to have them because sometimes I'm too lazy to bake them, but here they are at my sister's house. So we take the whole context, we make a choice based on awareness, and we accept the consequences. Then we don't blame other people for our choices. Oh, it's your fault, you left them out on the table. Okay, so all three. When we're, and again, this is from Virginia's definition of a healthy person, we take into account our own needs, our own self-esteem, our own goals. If we're looking at a healthy relationship with another person, we also look at what is the goals of the other person, what do they need, what's the impact of our behavior on them. So we take into account the other person as well, and we take in the context. So what's going on around us? Is this the right time and place to have a difficult conversation? Or would it be awkward for the other person? Would it be embarrassing? Do we need to say it right now, or could we wait till later to say something in private? Or do we want to have this conversation around the Christmas dinner table, or should we wait and have it sometime when we're not all gathered together to celebrate something? So that's the context. Is it late at night when people are tired and they may not be as careful with their language as they might be if it was at a better time of day? That's part of the context. So context is about privacy. It's about time and space. It's about, can this wait till the pandemic's over? Or is it a conversation that needs to happen now? Okay, I think I said that one. I think I've got that in there twice. Yeah. And that one too. Okay, here's another one. This is another belief of Virginia's, that a healthy person replies to questions directly, evaluates before passing judgment, and listens to their own wisdom box. And we could spend a whole session talking about the wisdom box, because it is a name that Virginia gave for everything we know that we can bring to bear, all our strengths, all our knowledge and history of past decisions. It's something she believed that we all had. And if we could only access it, it would be in our own best interest to do that. Yeah. The open, honest, authentic communication means that if somebody asks you a question, you answer it directly. You don't beat around the bush, or you don't avoid saying what you think you want to say because you don't think it's the right answer, or you think it might hurt somebody's feelings. Again, thinking of the self, other, and context part, Virginia believed that a healthy person evaluates before passing judgment, that we don't just judge something, you don't judge a book by its cover. You don't make a snap judgment about somebody without trying to understand where they're coming from, or have empathy with them, or trying to understand them. And the third part about listening to our own wisdom box, that she believed that we know everything we need to know, that we have all the strength we need to create the lives we want, and to be in good health with ourselves, mental health, emotional health. She believes that a healthy person expresses their sexual vitality and could talk about their desires openly. And this is especially significant when you're working with couples, because they're often have struggles with their sexual relationship or their financial relationships, and often people are not very good about saying what they want or what gives them pleasure. And they're often trying to read each other's minds about what the other person wants, or so people get into all kinds of unhealthy communication patterns when they're not able to express their own sexual needs or desires in other areas. A healthy person makes requests of others without having to explain themselves, so you can ask for what you want. We'll talk about that as one of the main freedoms in a little later slide. So the concept of being able to ask for something we want without having to go into a big explanation or justify it or be defensive about it is a foreign concept for a lot of people, especially if their self-esteem is low. They may feel they don't deserve to get what they want. They may feel that getting what they want makes them selfish, or to ask for what you want means that you're a selfish person. They can have a judgment about themselves or others if they do ask for what they want. If somebody is not used to asking for what they want, they may think that people who do it are very aggressive or selfish, and they may have a judgment about other people who know how to be assertive and ask for what they want. So it's very interesting how those dynamics work, especially when people are in a relationship with each other, or want to be in a relationship with each other, or are in a family relationship. A healthy person, again, makes honest choices and take risks on their own behalf. This, I'll echo this again in a later slide, the fifth freedom. You know, a lot of people that when they come into therapy, they will often come in and actually want you to fix some other person who's not even there. I see a couple of smiles happening. You know, they'll say they come into therapy the first time and they will talk about their partner or their mother or their, you know, somebody else that they blame for how unhappy they are. This is very common. And I'm not saying that to judge people or be critical, but we often think the problem lies in somebody else. And people say, well, you made me feel bad. Well, you know, personally, I don't believe that we can make anybody feel anything. Virginia didn't believe that people were responsible for other people's feelings. You know, which is not to say that our behavior doesn't affect other people. It certainly does. And everybody, Virginia would say, and I believe strongly, that we're responsible for our own feelings. And I can feel bad, I can feel sad, and there's nothing wrong with it. Sadness is a perfectly good feeling. It's a perfectly human response to tragedy, to death, to loss, to moving, to grief. It's a natural part of grief, and sadness is not a negative feeling or a bad feeling. And everyone will experience sadness in their life. Loss is just a normal part of life, and we are all going to feel sad at some point. Probably all of us will feel angry or hurt at some point, because we live in a world where we interact with other people, and sometimes the action of one person, we will feel hurt by it. We might feel left out, or we might feel criticized. These are our feelings. And so we can make choices about our feelings. If we want to feel differently, sometimes we can behave differently, and it will change our feelings. And that's the work in therapy. People come to therapy because they want to change. But often they think the change is going to happen because somebody else is going to do the changing, especially with couples and in families. You know, it's easy to see somebody as the black sheep in the family. It might be the child with addictions. It might be the child with the criminal behavior. It might be somebody acting out in some way in the family that expresses something on behalf of the whole family. Anyway, the concept of making choices is really significant in the Satir model. And also taking risks on your own behalf, because if you're going to change how you have always done things, if you're going to say ask for something you want when you have sat back and waited for people to offer you something, that's a risk. And sometimes you'll ask for something and people will say no. Just because you ask for it doesn't mean you're going to get it. But at least you've given other people the opportunity to know what's going on inside you. You're being authentic. You're being real and open with people, so they will know what you're thinking, because we don't always know what other people want. Okay, so let me just stop for a minute. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and just see if any of you want to talk about anything that I've said so far. I'm just stop share up here. Yes. So any thoughts or comments or questions about anything that I've said so far? I'm happy for you to add something, to disagree, to
I'm not coming in on the disagree, because that's just when my unmute came on. But I what I saw when you said wisdom box, that slide made me think of like intuition, right? Where, you know how they say when you tell a story, you have to think about it first, and that the wisdom box would be intuition, just letting you flow with what's comfortably so. That's what I took out of that. That was kind of neat hearing it called as a wisdom box. Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, I think intuition is an important part of our wisdom. And as we get more and more in tune, you know, we used to talk about 5 senses. Well, a lot of people believe in 6 or 7 senses. And we pick up things from the energy around us. We pick up, lots of you will know about energy work and, you know, picking those vibes up, using our intuition as a tool on our own behalf, and sharing that intuition with others if we want to. Virginia believes.
Do you think that's what she meant by wisdom box? Do you think that's what she meant, or no? Is it plausible? It's plausible, I suppose, huh?
Yeah. Well,
where's my wisdom? Give me access to my wisdom box. Where's my wisdom?
Well, Virginia believed that your wisdom box was actually in a place in your body. For her, it was, she said it was just like kind of below her belly button and about 2 inches inside her body. That's where she experienced her own wisdom box. And she actually, I don't know if you were here when I mentioned it, but we can do a presentation on the wisdom box sometime, because it'll take a long time to explain all the different parts of it that she envisioned.
So I work with chakras, so maybe that's one of those. So yeah, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, it could. Is there a chakra there?
Yeah, and from what I'm young and learning about it, but what I'm seeing or learning, right, I don't see them yet, is that there are like, I could see they're like access portals or something like that, you know? So that's pretty cool. So she got access to one of those and got in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when this is Bonnie, sometimes they talk about the 7 chakras. Well, other people talk about 12. And when they include 12, they include one called the navel chakra. So the navel chakra, I would think, would be close to the belly button. So I'm just including that.
Thank you.
And I just read last night about something about a belly button one that you brought up. But isn't that like supposed to be like the ultimate one, right? The like, I know there's
No, just from
there's-
what I've heard people talk about, they say it's related to like communicating with anyone or anything, like a tree or a plant or other people. So
Thank
that's what I've heard.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Oh, I see Barb's got her hand up here.
I was just likening that whole conversation to a gut feeling too. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
although it's very specific to that area, it really is that sense that you do know, but you sometimes and quite often choose not to follow through with what your gut is telling you, right?
Mhm.
So it's you know it because of that wisdom that you have from a variety of different things. My thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that it's, many people have learned to dismiss the body sensations that give us very clear messages about what's going on with us, and how to understand our own feelings and our own thoughts and everything. And it's something that you can really practice, paying attention to your body in a different way. Claire, I see your hand up. Unmute yourself, please, hon.
I think after 2 years of doing everything virtual, I'd remember. I wanted to make a comment about when previous few slides about finding our voice, finding our authentic voice. I've often wondered years ago, well, what does that really mean? And now what it means to me to find my authentic voice is to, if I have something to say, let's say to a friend, rather than include all my perceptions of how I see things or interpretations, just say it as it is. You know, she said, he said, this and that. And just to be really clear and to connect with my truth, what I want to say. For me, that's what it means to find my voice and to create, like to cut out the emotions from that maybe beliefs about what I want to say, which includes perceptions, interpretations. And this way it opens it up to what really happened rather than include judgment or like hurt feelings, things that could be, you know, triggers from the past. And we all have really good trigger teachers in our lives.
Mhm.
And for me, it feels really good to be able to finally understand, at least my understanding of what it means to find my voice. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's always amazing to me sometimes how difficult it is to just speak from the heart. Just say whatever it is that you feel or think without judging. Should you say it this way? Is it okay to say this? Will I hurt somebody's feelings? You know, and just to really just speak from the heart freely. And that's the freedom. That's the congruence exactly that Virginia talks about, and what many of us strive for more in our lives. Because the more congruent we are, the freer we are. We're not caught up in judgment either of self or others. We don't say, oh, I'm not going to say that, I'll sound like an idiot. Or what if I ask for that and I don't get it? I'll be disappointed, or I'll look greedy, or I'll look selfish, something like that. So just to put it out there freely from the heart and from the gut and from the whatever other part of our body is longing to speak and be heard and appreciated, understood, listened to, all of the yearnings that we as human beings have. Nice. Thank you all for your comments. It's so much more interesting when I hear what's going on in your heads as you're listening to the presentation. I know what's going on in my head. Okay, I'm going to go back. Unless somebody has any other comment or question, I'm going to go back and share some more of my screens. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Oh. Okay, play from current slide. Okay, so we've got the 5 freedoms up here, as we've been talking about. It is about using our senses. Many of us learn to deny certain senses, what we heard, see, taste, smell, touch, or feel, because I think largely because most parents love their children and they don't want them to experience hurt or suffering. And a lot of the family rules and the societal rules are established in order to prevent people from experiencing suffering. And my learning throughout life is that suffering is just part of life. And it doesn't do a lot of good to try to avoid it. And those of you who were here last week and to the session on the monkey mind, had a little more education about that, the role of suffering and what to do about it, to how we allow the suffering to contribute to the monkey mind stuff. So if you didn't see that session and you want to, when Vicki gets it up on the website, it was pretty interesting, I thought. Anyway, we are trained in some ways to deny what our senses tell us, or to mistrust them maybe. And Virginia really believed that to connect our body, our mind, our feelings, our expectations, and be in the moment, to be mindful and to appreciate and attend to our resources and choices in the present, was how we created better health for ourselves and higher self-esteem and less confusion, less suffering. And again, I mentioned earlier that feelings, I've come to learn through the work in the Satir model, that there aren't bad and good feelings. There aren't bad and good thoughts. There aren't bad and good expectations. And to accept ourselves wherever we are is a really great step towards being more congruent. Because we're not trying to talk ourselves out of what we're taking in with our senses and how we actually feel, think, believe, etc. And these are in the 60s and 70s, when Virginia was developing all her processes and her, starting to do her teaching around the world. And, she went to 105 countries in her lifetime. And she found that her beliefs held up across all of these different cultures. And I teach in 6 countries, and I've noticed that these beliefs and yearnings hold up in the countries I've been to. Well, she went to 105 countries and never was never had her beliefs challenged. She saw the same things happening in people all around the world. She didn't go everywhere, but wherever she went, she found that the 5 freedoms, the concepts, the way that people coped with stress were the same. And what people wanted everywhere was the same. We want to be seen, heard, acknowledged, valued, accepted, loved. We want to be creative. We want to have freedom. Most people, you know, we want to be valued. These are universal longings. And accepting who we are in the moment is that mindfulness concept, to just look at what is. And this is where the 5 freedoms start off. Freedom 1, the freedom to see and hear what is here instead of what should be, what was, or will be. Now, I bet all of you know people who live in the past. Their day-to-day lives are affected by maybe a childhood trauma that they have not found a way to resolve or find peace with, or accept, or find the learning that came out of that trauma. And they live in the past. So when they see, you know, they might look at an event in the present, but they're actually living in the past. They don't see what's happening in front of them. They filter it through their past experience and are taken back there. So if somebody, for example, say a child has experienced physical violence in their childhood, and they're now an adult, they're, you know, 40 years old, and somebody yells at them, and they're triggered to that childhood memory. And in a way, they become the child, listening to a father's voice or a brother's voice or some voice, and they're actually take themselves back to an experience from the past. They're not in the present, hearing what that person is saying to them in the here and now. Other people live in the future all the time, and they can't enjoy the present because they're always thinking about the future, what could be, what should be, how a perfect world would be. And so they're always trying to correct things. They're always trying to make things perfect instead of just accepting what is and enjoying what is, being mindful of what is and appreciating or valuing what is. So that's a freedom. If we can look out and just see what is, and just take a moment and just look around you in your environment, and just look at it and try not to judge, just look and accept what is.
Kind of like, Pat, as you're looking out the front window and seeing that there's 3 feet of snow that I really should have shoveled and gotten off my deck. Instead, I choose to just look out and see 3 feet of snowdrifts.
Exactly. Yes, and I'm glad when you look out at that, you're not blaming me for not doing the shoveling too, which I could have helped with and didn't. That's exactly right. Because you can look out and you have a choice about, what you just seeing, period, or just hearing the words and not throwing yourself into a past trauma or throwing your head into a fantastical world of perfection that you may or may not exist in the future. So this is what Virginia really encouraged people to do and to do with each other. And some of her exercises that we use in groups and also in, you know, working with people in the therapy setting is to help them to shut off that internal judge where we can judge ourselves, we blame ourselves for what isn't perfect, we distract ourselves, we give ourselves monkey mind, all of that. So it's a real freedom to just observe and listen and hear what is without adding on those layers of interpretation, trying to read each other's minds. So it's, in my experience, I use this exercise a lot when I'm training therapists, and even therapists, people who are used to being very careful listeners, move very quickly from what they see and hear to what they think about what they see and hear, or the meaning that they make about what they see and hear. And it's a practice that we can learn. Okay, freedom 2 is the freedom to say what you feel and think instead of what you should feel and think. So sometimes we know what we feel, but we don't think that we should feel that way. You know, you can look at people who are going through grief, and, you know, grief can last, you know, say somebody important to you passes away. You know, some people can be through their grief process in a year or two. Some people, it might take 4 or 5 years. We're all different. But some people think, oh, I should be over this already, or I should have moved on. We see that in families where there's been a suicide, and people are grieving over that at some level for the rest of their lives. And we might think, oh, well, that person shouldn't be thinking about it so much, or they should have given away that person's things, or, you know, we can start feeling that about ourselves, feeling what we should feel, or, oh, we shouldn't think that. We shouldn't think that, you know, that person was rude to us. We judge ourselves for judging. Instead of just saying, yeah, well, I have a judgment about that. I'm working on a judgment. This is a particular thing for me. Sometimes I judge people. I don't like it in myself. It's a quality I work on every day of my life, but I do sometimes judge people. And I might think, oh, judging people is bad, so I'm not going to admit it. And I'm going to feel guilty every time I judge people. But, you know, I found that if I can say, you know, I've got a judgment about that, and, you know, it's not my best quality, but it is a quality I have. Sometimes that's what I feel sometimes, or that's what I think sometimes. Yeah, and it's related to the freedom to feel what I do feel instead of what I ought to feel, or what you ought to feel. So there's feeling it, and then there's the previous one, which is saying what you feel and think. And Virginia saw those as 2 different freedoms. And I think that's pretty interesting to think about. So we don't have to say everything we think and feel, but what we choose to say about what we feel and think does impact on other people, does have consequences sometimes, is sometimes risky and is the route to congruence and authenticity. So we can be authentic with ourselves and say, you know what, I feel really hurt about how somebody spoke to me last night in a phone call. I was very hurt. This actually happened to me. I was in a phone call. I was very hurt by some words that somebody spoke to me on a phone call. And it's somebody that I like and respect. And my feelings were really hurt. But I have the freedom to say that last night or not say that directly to this person. And I chose not to say that because I think the person was too angry on the phone call and wouldn't have been able to hear me say that. So later on, I got an email from the same person who apologized for having lost his temper. And then I felt that it was safe to say what I thought and felt. So I did it later. But at the time I made the choice, I had the freedom to say what I felt or not. And I exercised that freedom by not saying what I felt and thought. I tried to placate a little bit to help them calm down. That's a freedom that Virginia identified and that we have to make choices. But the freedom to feel what I feel, to acknowledge to myself whatever was in my gut, you know. Yes, I was scared when he was getting angry and yelling at me. I was scared. I was hurt. I started to feel angry myself. And part of me wanted to fight back, but I chose to placate as believing that was a better choice. So this is a freedom. Okay, now here are some of the phrases that my other sister and I came up with last night as I was preparing some new slides for this presentation. Things that we say to each other that cause us to deny feelings or help suppress feelings. You know, and you know, you'll get over it. People express a sadness or a grief or despair or a strong feeling that is maybe we're uncomfortable with, and they say, you'll get over it. Or have you ever experienced this when people tell you that you shouldn't feel a certain way? You shouldn't feel guilty. Has anyone ever told you that you shouldn't feel how you feel? Yeah. Yeah. I think most of us have experienced that, and it's kind of disconcerting, I find, if people tell you you shouldn't feel something and you know you feel it. Well, I do feel that way. And if we track it down, if that person, you know, tracking down where's that comment coming from, it's probably coming from a place of love where people don't want you to feel bad. Or it comes from a place of discomfort with so-called negative feelings, or dealing with the dark emotions, as one wonderful writer expressed it. You know, guilt is not a comfortable feeling to talk about, or shame, or humiliation. These are not feelings that we're usually very comfortable talking about or listening to people talk about. Something that adults often say to children, nothing can be that bad, or you're too young to feel whatever you feel, love. You're too young to feel that desperate or whatever you're feeling. We discount or deny feelings, and we say things trying to be supportive, but they're often have the opposite effect. Familiar? Yeah. Okay, the freedom number 4, the freedom to ask for what you want instead of always waiting for permission. This, a lot of us don't know what we really want. For those of you who do therapy or counseling, you'll know that the first thing we have to find out from our clients is what do they really want for themselves. And not at the superficial level, but at the very deep level of the universal yearnings. Because if we don't know that, we can't help them figure out the journey to get there. And we may, often people will come in and at first they'll talk about something kind of superficial, or as I mentioned earlier, they'll talk about what they want somebody else to do. This is not about what they want. And even though we may think about that our happiness will come from other people, or that we, don't deserve to get what we want, or asking for what we want is selfish, Virginia described it as the 4th freedom. Because when we're able to, it can be as simple as, if people are sitting in a workshop and they have to go to the bathroom, or they're thirsty. Some people would sit there and become very, very uncomfortable until the facilitator of the workshop gave them a break. Or they wouldn't just get up and get a glass of water or go to the bathroom if they needed to go to the bathroom. And this is professional adults I worked with in many, many training sessions. And, I usually tell people at the beginning that suffering is optional, that they're free to get up and stretch if they need to. Like 2 hours is a long time to sit without stretching. I like the little heart I see up there. But suffering is optional. If you're thirsty, get a drink. If you're dying for a cup of coffee because somebody just made a fresh pot, get up and get one. You don't have to wait for, or, you might, to be polite, say, excuse me, I just need to step out for a moment. So people don't think that you're leaving in disgust or anger or something. But some people will always, or most often, wait for permission instead of asking for what they want. And the other layer, which I alluded to, is that a lot of people don't know what they want for themselves. They know what they want and has somebody else to do that they think will bring them happiness, but they don't really know what they want for themselves. And Virginia was really, really great in defining these universal yearnings. And I'll mention them again. Validation, acceptance, love, appreciation, creativity, freedom, connection, communication. These are universal. We all want them. And asking, if we're not getting it, to be able to ask a partner or a child or a parent or somebody, a family member, for what we want, is especially hard for women who have been more trained to look at what everybody else wants and needs and to think about what we need last. And I don't know what all of your experiences were. Even in my own family, I don't know what Barb's experience of our family were, but mine of our mother was that she would make sure that everybody else was looked after first. And we learned that. And not just our own mother, but all the other mothers on our block or in our community and our grandmothers. That's how they operated. And we learned that as women, that this is what women do. We don't ask for what we want for ourselves. We try to anticipate what everybody else wants and needs and give it to them before they ask for it. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? Yeah. This is why Virginia described it as another freedom. And it truly is a freedom when you start asking for what you want. It's not easy at first. But when you do, and you also know that just because you ask it doesn't mean you're going to get it. But people can say, well, no, no, you can't have that right now. You can't use my car right now. I need my car. Okay, well, when can I use your car? Then you figure it out, you problem solve. You know, it leads to a better place. And one of the things with a lot of my the couples that I work with, it happens so often that people think that they can read each other's minds. You know, a husband believes that he knows what his wife is thinking, and she believes that you know, he should know what she wants. You know, she's told him 100 times, but you know, so people get into these very difficult, hard places where they're not treating each other with love and respect because they think the other one should be able to read their mind. And you know, I'll give you, well, anyway, I'll give you an example of something that I found another way to deal with once, asking for what I wanted. I was married a couple of times, divorced a couple of times to wonderful men. If we had been more skilled at communicating and being authentic and expressing ourselves to each other, I could still have been married to either one of them. They're wonderful men and fathers of my daughters. But we were not very good at communicating. I didn't know when I was, you know, 40 years ago what I know now. I wish I had, but I didn't. And I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted. And I found myself, just in this one example, my first husband never remembered my birthday. And he didn't remember his own birthday. He didn't remember anybody's birthday, but I took it personally. I thought if he really loved me, if he really cared about me, he would remember my birthday. And how hard is it to remember one day a year? And every year I would wake up on my birthday, waiting for the flowers, waiting for the present, waiting for the card, something, acknowledgement, and didn't get it. And then I would get mad and I would blame him and have a, you know, be miserable for a while and, you know, blame it on him and all this stuff. And at some point I said, you know, this is ridiculous. I can change this. And I told him that it was really important for me that he acknowledged my birthday and that it was so important that I was going to remind him starting a week ahead of time that my birthday was coming up. And I knew in my heart that he would want to celebrate my birthday with me. He was a very romantic guy. He would want to take me out for dinner and wine and dine and have a big splashy present. That was who he was. He just didn't remember it. And so I did that. And I started reminding him ahead of time so that I wouldn't be disappointed. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted him to do something really special on my birthday. And if I wasn't going to continue to remain disappointed the rest of my life, I would have to do something different. And in fact, when we had kids, we had one child together, and then he was stepfather to my older daughter. And they were disappointed when he didn't remember their birthday. I would remind him, don't forget Shannon's birthday's coming up. Don't forget birthday's coming up. Be disappointed. And yeah, that's just the way it was. So I asked for what I wanted and I got what I wanted. And I was much happier. And I got to celebrate my birthday, have a great time. And And sometimes I had a thought, well, I shouldn't have to ask for that. He should have known. He should have just read my mind and done it. But that was not going to happen. And my experience year after year, it wasn't. And I was much happier when I reminded him, and we had a nice dinner. We had this kind of celebration that I wanted and he wanted. So that's just an example about asking for what we want, but it wasn't easy. And that voice in my head said, well, you shouldn't have to ask. But you know what? The reality is, back to freedom number one, what do I actually see and hear? What I see and hear is that every year he forgets my birthday. That's the reality. So I can fight that reality, or I can ask for what I want. Tammy, did you say something?
I said, yes, I said, or create a new one.
Yeah,
One where he always remembers your birthday, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go down to the fifth freedom, and then we're going to, I think we should be probably pretty close to the end of the presentation. Oh yeah, some examples of asking for what you want. Will you help me? A lot of people are very reluctant to ask for help because they think it makes them look weak. I've been there. I used to have big parties for people's birthdays, and they'd say, oh, can I, people coming to the dinner would say, oh, can I bring something? I'd say, no, 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 that's all right. And I'd stay up till 3 a.m. cooking and baking and cleaning the house and everything. And for some reason, I didn't want to accept help. And then I'd be up till, they say, can I help you clean up? Oh, no, that's okay. I'll do it. And, I'd be up till 3, 4 a.m. doing dishes and cleaning up. And not that I'm saying that as a complaint either. I enjoyed thinking about the evening and things like that, but it was hard. I was a single parent. I had to get up early in the morning with kids. And when I learned to ask for help when I needed it, or accept help when it was offered, life was much easier. And I wished I'd done it a long time before that. Accept help when it's offered. If people say, yeah, can I bring something to dinner? I say, yeah, sure. You want to bring a salad? You want to bring dessert? And I would think about, oh, what don't I don't want to cook something. So I'm going to ask them to do that part that I don't want to do, or that will be really a big help. So that was something I had to learn. I don't know about you guys, but I had to learn that. I valued independence, and, there was something about doing it all yourself that made me feel strong. Can I speak first? Some people might think, oh, that's rude, that's selfish. Why should you speak first? They might have a judgment about that, but maybe I really want to get something I'm burning to say out there. Would I be able to say that? Will you please stop criticizing me? Will you come home early tonight? Can we ask a partner or a roommate for something that we really want? Can we say, can I come visit you tomorrow and risk the chance of being rejected? They might say, well, no, tomorrow's not a good day. And we might feel, oh, they don't really want to see me, or, no, will you return my sweater, please? Will you please wait until I finish speaking? I have a judgment about interruptions and people interrupting me. I think it's, I have a judgment. I think it's rude and disrespectful. That's my judgment. So if somebody interrupts me and I'm going to say what I really think and feel, I might want to ask them to wait till I finish speaking. But that's pretty assertive to do that. Some people would just back down and let the other person who interrupted you take over. And that's a choice. You can do that too. But if you say, will you please wait till I finish speaking? A lot of people are going to go, whoa, you know. They're going to hear it as a judgment. And it may well be. So those were just some examples I thought of off the top of my head. And the fifth freedom, the freedom to take risks on your own behalf instead of choosing to be only secure. And sometimes we're going to choose security over taking a risk. Sometimes we're going to take a big risk because it's so important and it might help us get what we want. Some risks I don't want to take, like that one. But some people might want to take a risk like that. But in the area of interpersonal relations and family relations, it's not usually this kind of a risk that we're talking about. It's risks of rejection, risks of being judged, risks of